In the frozen winter of 1944, the small town of Bastogne, Belgium, was on the brink of collapse. The German army, led by the seasoned General Heinrich von Lüttwitz, had launched a surprise counterattack through the Ardennes forest, catching the Allied forces off guard. As the battle raged on, a lone messenger, Private First Class James Hendricks, found himself at the forefront of the chaos. Hendricks, a young and inexperienced soldier, had been tasked with delivering crucial messages between the units of the 101st Airborne Division, which was desperately trying to hold onto the strategic town. As Hendricks navigated the treacherous terrain, he witnessed the devastating impact of the German artillery and small arms fire. The once quiet streets of Bastogne were now a war zone, with buildings reduced to rubble and the sounds of gunfire and screams filling the air. The soldiers of the 101st Airborne, who had been tasked with holding the town, were vastly outnumbered and outgunned, and it seemed as though all hope was lost. But Hendricks, driven by a sense of duty and determination, refused to give up. He dodged and weaved through the bullets and shells, delivering his messages with a speed and accuracy that would prove crucial to the outcome of the battle. One such message, which Hendricks delivered to the commander of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, Colonel Robert Sink, would change the course of the battle forever. The message, which had been sent by General Anthony McAuliffe, the acting commander of the 101st Airborne, was a simple yet defiant response to the German demand for surrender, nuts. The message was a testament to the unyielding spirit of the American soldiers, and it would serve as a rallying cry for the troops as they prepared to face the enemy head-on. As the battle raged on, Hendricks continued to deliver his messages, often under heavy fire and at great personal risk. He moved with a speed and agility that allowed him to evade the enemy bullets, and his knowledge of the terrain proved invaluable as he navigated the treacherous streets of Bastogne. But Hendricks's most crucial mission was yet to come. As the German forces closed in on the town, the American commanders realized that they needed to hold the strategic crossroads of Bastogne at all costs. The crossroads, which were the key to controlling the town, were under heavy attack, and it seemed as though the enemy was on the verge of breaking through. In a desperate bid to hold the crossroads, Colonel Sink called upon Hendricks to deliver a message to the commander of the 2nd Battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Chapuz. The message, which was sent in a coded format to avoid detection by the enemy, instructed Chapuz to launch a counterattack against the German forces and to hold the crossroads at all costs. Hendricks, who had been tasked with delivering the message, set off into the unknown, facing a maelstrom of bullets and shells as he made his way to the 2nd Battalion's position. The journey was perilous, with the enemy forces closing in on all sides, but Hendricks pressed on, driven by his sense of duty and his determination to complete his mission. As he approached the 2nd Battalion's position, Hendricks could see the devastating impact of the German artillery. The buildings were in ruins, and the soldiers were pinned down by the relentless barrage. But Hendricks, undaunted by the chaos, delivered his message to Lieutenant Colonel Chapuz, who quickly rallied his troops and launched a fierce counterattack against the enemy. The counterattack, which was led by the brave soldiers of the 2nd Battalion, was a defining moment in the battle for Bastogne. The American forces, who had been on the brink of collapse, suddenly found themselves on the offensive, pushing the enemy back and holding the strategic crossroads. As the battle raged on, Hendricks continued to deliver his messages, playing a crucial role in the Allied victory. The town of Bastogne, which had been on the verge of collapse, was saved, and the German army was forced to retreat. The bravery and determination of Private First Class James Hendricks, the forgotten runner, had changed the course of the battle, and his actions would be remembered for generations to come. The battle for Bastogne was one of the most intense and brutal of the war, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But in the end, it was the bravery and determination of the American soldiers, led by men like Private First Class James Hendricks, that proved to be the decisive factor. The town of Bastogne was saved, and the German army was forced to retreat, marking a significant turning point in the war. As the dust settled, Hendricks, who had been instrumental in the Allied victory, was hailed as a hero. His bravery and determination had changed the course of the battle, and his actions would be remembered for generations to come. The forgotten runner, who had once been just a lone messenger, had become a symbol of the unyielding spirit of the American soldiers, and his legacy would live on forever. As the German forces retreated, Hendricks was tasked with delivering a message to the commander of the 1st Battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Clarence Hester, to regroup and prepare for a potential counterattack. The streets of Bastogne were still treacherous, with pockets of enemy soldiers and hidden snipers, but Hendricks navigated the terrain with a sense of familiarity, his knowledge of the town's layout proving invaluable. As he made his way to the 1st Battalion's position, he encountered a group of wounded soldiers, who were desperately in need of medical attention. Without hesitation, Hendricks helped the soldiers to safety, using his knowledge of the terrain to avoid enemy fire. The brief delay, however, meant that Hendricks was now behind schedule, and he knew that every minute counted. He quickened his pace, his heart racing with anticipation, as he approached the 1st Battalion's position. The sounds of gunfire and artillery grew louder, and Hendricks could see the faint outline of the battalion's command post in the distance. Suddenly, a burst of enemy fire erupted from a nearby building, and Hendricks was forced to take cover behind a nearby wall. He peered around the corner, his eyes scanning the rooftops for any sign of the enemy. The building seemed to be occupied by a group of heavily armed German soldiers, who were intent on cutting off the American forces' supply lines. Hendricks knew that he had to act quickly, and he spotted a narrow alleyway that ran alongside the building. Without hesitation, he sprinted down the alleyway, using the wall for cover as he made his way to the 1st Battalion's position. As he emerged from the alleyway, he was greeted by Lieutenant Colonel Hester, who was relieved to receive the message. The 1st Battalion quickly regrouped, preparing to face the enemy in a fierce battle that would determine the outcome of the war. The streets of Bastogne were about to become a battleground once again, and Hendricks, the forgotten runner, was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With his message delivered, Hendricks was tasked with providing real-time intelligence on the enemy's movements, and he set off to gather crucial information on the German forces' dispositions. The battle for Bastogne was far from over, and Hendricks's bravery and determination would be tested to the limit as the American forces fought to secure the strategic town. As he moved through the ruins of Bastogne, Hendricks encountered a group of civilians, who were huddled together in a makeshift shelter. They were terrified, and Hendricks could see the fear in their eyes as they whispered stories of the German atrocities. He knew that he had to reassure them, and he took a moment to speak with the group, offering what little comfort he could. The brief respite, however, was short-lived, as a loud explosion rocked the ground, sending Hendricks tumbling to the floor. As he struggled to his feet, he saw a plume of smoke rising from the direction of the command post, and he knew that the enemy had launched a devastating counterattack. The battle for Bastogne had just entered its most intense phase, and Hendricks, the forgotten runner, was about to face the greatest challenge of his life.